Hello there friends, it's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and thanks so much for stopping by the channel. It's week 20 of the 2023 Amigurumi Advent Calendar Crochet Along, and this week we're going to be continuing on with our work that we started last week. If you recall, last week we started making a superhero mask for our dolls, but this week we have to complete the ensemble and we're going to be making little superhero costumes. This is an easy level project and it works up quickly, and I'm going to give you some tips on how to customize your superhero costume to make it a little more fun and unique for your child or whoever you plan to give this doll and its costume to. So before we start crocheting, let's hop on into what materials we'll need to follow along with today's tutorial. To follow along with today's tutorial to make your own superhero costume for your crochet doll, you'll need the following materials. You're going to need a worsted weight yarn in 3 colors of your preference. In the original sample that I did, and you see on the cover of this video, we used a dark blue color first, then there's black, and then we used this cornflower color on top. But because those first 2 colors are so dark and we won't be able to see what we're doing on the camera, I've made some substitutions. So I'm using the Bravo worsted weight line from We Crochet, and the colors that I'm using to make my sample today, I'm using the color cornflower first, dove gray heather, followed by orange last. But feel free to make your own substitutions, and if you're looking for some color inspiration, Google superhero costume colors and you'll find lots of examples there. You'll also need a 3.5mm or E crochet hook, or whatever hook size that you've been using throughout the crochet along to match the gauge. If you're just joining us now, you can find the gauge information for this pattern over on the written version of this pattern on my blog, theloopylamb.com, which I've linked in the description box below. You'll need a tapestry needle, at least 1 stitch marker. You'll need 2 9mm buttons, some scissors, and a sewing needle and thread in a color that matches the top half of your superhero costume. So I'm going to clear my workspace here and we'll jump on into crocheting our superhero costume for our dolls. To start our superhero costume, we're going to be starting by creating the pant legs of our costume, working from the bottom of the costume to the top. And when you're selecting your first color for your pants, in my original sample, I used the color Celestial, which is a dark blue. But again, because you can't see that, we're going to be using this lighter color here, which is called Cornflower. So if you're looking for some color inspiration, make sure to Google superhero costume colors and you'll find lots of inspiration there. Or just make sure that whatever you're picking for your pants color is the first color you're using here. So to start crocheting, we're going to create a slip knot, laying the tail end of your yarn across your palm, pin it down with your thumb. Then we're going to grab the working end of the yarn, which is the yarn that is attached to the ball, and we're going to wrap it around our fingers from back to front, and we're going to cross the yarn over itself to create this X. Then we're going to flip our hand over, bringing the yarn with us, and then we're going to pin the yarn between our middle finger and our ring finger. Then we're going to grab our crochet hook and insert it under the first strand and over the second. Then we're going to use our crochet hook to pull that second strand under the first, and then very gently, while we're pulling on that yarn with our hook, we're going to remove our fingers from the yarn, and then pinning both ends of the yarn down with our finger, we're going to pull up on the hook, pulling that slip knot closed. Okay, now all we have to do is pull the yarn, the working yarn end, and we're going to pull that up tight to tighten our slip knot up to our hook. Make sure that you've got some fluidity of movement here so you can crochet easily. Now, as I said, we're going to be creating the pant legs of our superhero costume first. So we're going to start with pant leg 1. So to start pant leg 1, we need to start with a chain of 20. So to create our chain, we're going to yarn over hook and pull that yarn through the loop on our hook. That's 1 chain. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through that loop again. That's 2. Yarn over hook, pull through the loop. That's 3. We're going to continue this yarn over and pull through the loop until we have 20 chains. So I'm going to take a pause for a moment, do my 20 chains, and I'll meet you back here in just a moment. So I'm back and I have my chain of 20. If you are unfamiliar with how to make sure that you've got 20 chains, I'm going to show you how to do that now. So make sure that you turn your chain so you can see where these V's are facing you. If it looks like this, or it looks like this, that you've got the wrong side of the chain facing you, you need to turn the piece so you can see these little V shapes. And now counting from the knot over towards your hook, you're going to count over each chain counts as one until you have, make sure you've got 20. Now we never count the yarn on our hook as a chain. We're only going to start or stop counting here in this last chain here, never the yarn attached to the hook. All right. So now that we've got our 20 chains, we need to slip stitch into the first chain to create a loop. Now I find it really helpful to hold the end of my chain like so, placing my finger in the center and folding the chain in half like this, because we want to make sure that we don't have any twists in our chain. So now that I've got the first chain up towards my, or up close to my hook here, I'm going to just insert my hook into that first chain. Now I'm going to grab my yarn and then I'm going to yarn over and pull that loop through the first chain and through the loop on my hook. And that is our slip stitch. Now, if you're unfamiliar with joining in the round like this, I recommend bringing in your stitch marker here and placing it in that last chain, because especially when you're have that slip stitch in your foundation chain here, it can be really confusing when you get to the end of the round as to which is the last chain. So I always recommend, if you can find that confusing, then I recommend using that stitch marker there. So now that we have our slip stitch completed, we're going to yarn over and chain up one. And then we're going to work one single crochet into each chain around. So working into that first chain, which is a little tricky to see again because of that slip stitch, but you can see that gap there. We're going to insert a hook into that chain. We're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through both loops. And that is your first single crochet completed. And now we're going to do that into every chain around our piece. So working into the next chain, inserting our hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through both loops on our hook. Now we've got 2 single crochets. And again, we're doing this into every chain around. So I'll show you one more time. Inserting into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. And that's your third single crochet completed. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each of the chains that we created, we're going to make sure that when we're working around, we're going to put our last single crochet into that last chain where we put our stitch marker. So I'll meet you back here at the end of the round and I'll show you how we're going to join and move on into round 2. All right, so I'm back. I've got my 20 single crochets, and to count your stitches, you would turn your piece so you can see those V's along the top of your work and count those V's around. The slip stitch never counts as a stitch, and you can see here this little V at the very beginning, that's our chain 1, and that also does not count as a stitch ever. So we're going to join our last stitch to our first stitch with a slip stitch before moving into round 2. So inserting our hook into that first single crochet under both loops, we're going to insert a hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Then we're going to pull that loop through the loop on our hook, and that is our slip stitch join. Now, before we move on to round 2, again, because that slip stitch is in there, it can make it a little confusing as to where we're working. So I like to put a stitch marker in the first stitch that I did of this round. So because in the next round, it will be where I'm going to work the last stitch of the next round. So I like to keep that there as a handy reminder. So I'm not picking up or losing any extras or any stitches along the way. So now we're going to yarn over hook and chain up 1. Then we're going to turn our work And then for round 2, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So we're not going to work here because that is where our slip stitch join is. So we're going to skip the slip stitch join and work into the last stitch we created in the previous round. And we're going to work a single crochet. And then we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each of the stitches we created in the previous round. At the end of the round, we should have 20 single crochets. So if you'd like to pause your video and come back to me in just a moment, I'll show you how we'll end this round and move into round 3. All right, so I'm back and I've done my last stitch of the round, and to finish off this round, I'm going to join my last stitch to my first stitch with a slip stitch join. So working into the first stitch of the round, I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through the loop already on my hook. And that is our slip stitch join. Now for rounds 3 and 4, we're going to work them the exact same way. We're going to yarn over and chain up 1, and then we're going to turn our work. And then we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. And just bear with me a second. I'm going to put my stitch marker in there. And then we're just working 1 single crochet into each stitch around. Then at the end of the round, we're just going to join with a slip stitch as we did in both rounds. So if you'd like to pause your video and do rounds 3 and 4, working 1 single crochet into each stitch around, make sure that you're turning at the end of every round, and I'll meet you back here at the end of round 4 to show you what we'll be doing next. So I'm at the end of round 4 and I'm joining my last stitch to my first stitch with a slip stitch, yarning over, pulling up a loop, and then pulling that loop through the loop on my hook. Now that we have done that, we can cut our yarn, which I've already done here. And we're going to pull that yarn all the way through the last loop here. And then we're going to pull that tight. And that is our first pant leg, and you can set that aside. Now, to do pant leg 2, we're going to do it exactly the same way as we did pant leg 1. So rewind the video back to the beginning here, where we start with our foundation chain and create a second pant leg. But when you get to the end of round 4, do not finish off. Keep the yarn attached to the piece and meet me back here, because after we're done that, we're going to join the 2 legs together to start creating the rest of our pants. All right, welcome back. I have my second pant leg here, and I just finished my slip stitch to join my last stitch to my first stitch at the end of round 4. And now we're ready to move into round 5, and where in this round we're going to be joining our 2 pant legs together to actually make it into a pair of pants. So to start round 5, we're going to yarn over and chain 2. Okay, then we're going to bring in our first pant leg. And then we're going to place a single crochet into the last stitch of the first pant leg. So I can tell that this is my last stitch here because I've got my slip stitch join in there, and I'm going to insert my hook into that last stitch. Then I'm going to grab my working yarn, and then I'm going to single crochet into that stitch. All right, so at this point, your legs, let me untangle it here and get my hook out of the way so you can see this better. Your legs should be joined with that chain 2 that we just created. Now we're going to place a stitch marker here in the second chain that we just created, because in the next round, it is going to be our first stitch moving forward. So we're just going to place that stitch marker there for a moment. So now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the stitches along the top of our first pant leg here. And I'm just going to bring in my yarn tail, and I'm going to crochet over that yarn tail to get it out of the way. So we're just going to work 19 more single crochets around the top of this first pant leg. So I'm in the center here, and at this point, because of the slip stitch join, and I forgot to leave a marker in there, it can be a little tricky as to where to end this round. So if you're finding that that is difficult, I'd recommend taking a look at the top of the pant leg at the stitches that you just created. Now we know that this stitch marker is in the second chain we created. So that means right here, this little V is the first stitch that we created. And so that means that we need to count from this stitch all the way around, and we need to have 20 stitches around the piece. So I'm just going to count along here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So I know that I am supposed to work in this tiny little gap here because I need to have 20 stitches. So I'm just going to work in there. Goodness. There we go. So now I have my 20 single crochets. We're going to have to work into our chains. So just for a moment, I'm going to move this stitch marker out of the way because it's going to make it easier for us to work into, and then also hopefully a little easier for you to see. So if you take a look at your pants, again, they're joined with this chain 2 in the middle. So we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of those chains. Now, when you look, because of the way the chain is, it might be looking upside down to you. That is okay. What I like to do is I take the tip of my hook right here, and I'm going to go under the chain and pick up 1 loop on the chain, because I'm going to work into the other side of the chain when I get back around. So I only need to pick up 1 of the loops. So I'm going to single crochet into that first chain and then do that again. Second one can be a little tricky. There we go. And then single crochet into the second chain. All right. And then again, because I've done my chain work here, I'm going to put that stitch marker back into the second chain on the other side so I know where I'll be stopping. So now we're going to continue to work along the top of the second pant leg here, and we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So we're going to just going to double check here, make sure I'm not working into a slip stitch. Right. So we've got our first single crochet here. And again, we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each of the stitches along the top of pant leg 2. Now at the end of this round, I'm going to tell you how many stitches that we're going to need to have. And I recommend that you take a moment at the end of the round to count your stitches to make sure that you have enough. Because one of the issues with this round is it's very easy to pick up or lose stitches, and we need those stitches to be in place in order to build on in the following rows. So make sure that you take a moment at the end and count to make sure you have the right number of stitches. So we're almost all the way around here. And we're back to where we started. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to work 1 single crochet into the first chain here. And again, you might have to turn it upside down to grab those loops there. Go up through the center and then single crochet. Now at the end of round 5, you should have 44 stitches. And now technically you'll have 43 stitches, but this place where we put our stitch marker in, that is only a chain. We've counted it as a stitch. So you should have the 43 stitches plus that chain, which counts as a stitch. So you should have a total of 44 stitches. So I'd take a moment and count around the entire piece that you've just done and make sure you've got 44 stitches before moving into round 6. All right, so at the end of round 5, we need to join our last stitch with a slip stitch to the first stitch before we move on. So we're going to insert our hook into that chain space where the stitch marker is, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then pull that yarn through the loop on your hook to do your slip stitch join. Then we're going to yarn over and chain up 1, and then we're turning our work. For round 6, we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. And when you get to the end of the round, that last stitch should be placed where your stitch marker is into that chain. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet at the end of the round, into each stitch round, I'll meet you at the end of the round to show you how we're going to join and move into round 7. All right, so I just finished my last stitch of round 6, and I'm going to join my last stitch to my first stitch with a slip stitch here. We've done this so many times, I'm not going to explain it again for you. But to move into round 7, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. And again, I'm going to keep my stitch marker into the last stitch there, so I know where I should be working my stitches and I won't be picking up any extras. Okay, so moving into round 7, we're going to start our row off with a single crochet decrease. Now, when you're doing a pattern that's in turned rows or rounds like this, you can't use an invisible decrease if you're familiar with that technique, because it just doesn't work the same if you're depending on which side of the work you're facing. So when I'm doing my amigurumi doll clothes, I always use a regular single crochet decrease, just because it's simpler than trying to remember to switch between invisible and not invisible, and it gets confusing. So for this project, we're just using a regular single crochet increase or decrease just to make it simpler. It doesn't have that big of an impact on this project at all. So to start a single crochet decrease, we're going to insert our hook into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Then we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And that's your single crochet decrease completed. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining stitches. And there should be 42 stitches remaining. At the end of the round, you'll join your last stitch to your first stitch with a slip stitch, and you should have 43 stitches at the end of this round. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet in each stitch round, I'll meet you back here at the end of the round and show you how to move into round 8. All right, so I'm at the end of round 7 and I joined my last stitch to my first stitch with a slip stitch, and I've moved up my stitch marker just for my reference, and I'm ready to move into round 8. To start round 8, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1. Then we're going to turn our work. And round 8 is a simple one. We're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. And then at the end of the round, we will join our last and first stitch with a slip stitch join. You should still have 43 stitches. So if you'd like to pause your video and do 1 single crochet into each stitch around, let me meet you back here at the end of round 8 to explain how we're moving into round 9. All right, so I just finished my last stitch of round 8. I've got my slip stitch join in place, and I'm ready to move into round 9. So to start round 9, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1, and then we're going to turn our work. To start round 9, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the first 41 stitches. And you're like, I don't want to count that. What the heck? But here's a trick. You're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around and leave the last 2 stitches unworked. Okay, so work 1 single crochet into each stitch around until you've got 2 stitches left to be worked. And I'll meet you back here at that point and show you what we're going to be doing in those last 2 stitches. All right, so I'm back and we're at the end of round 9 and we have 2 stitches left to be worked. So I'm just going to move my stitch marker out of the way here so we can work our last stitch here. So we're going to do a single crochet decrease over these last 2 stitches. So I'll show you how to do that again. We're going to insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. 2 loops should be on your hook. Working into that second stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook to complete your single crochet decrease. And now to finish off our round, we're going to do a slip stitch join, joining that first stitch to the last stitch with a slip stitch. And then we're going to yarn up and chain 1 and turn our work. Now bear with me as I move up my stitch marker here. And then we're ready for round 10. For round 10, it's another simple round, we are going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. Now, because we did a decrease in the previous round, we should have 42 stitches at the end of round 9, and at the end of round 10, we should still have the same amount of stitches. We should have 42 stitches. So if you'd like to do 1 single crochet into each stitch around and join the last stitch to the first stitch with a slip stitch at the end, I'll meet you back here at the end of round 10, showing you how we're moving into round 11. All right, so we're back. I just finished my slip stitch join at the end of round 10, and we're going to be moving into round 11. To start, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. So to start round 11, we're going to start off with a single crochet decrease. So inserting our hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert into the next, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to complete your single crochet decrease. Now the rest of the round is simple. We're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining stitches. At the end of this round, you should have 41 stitches. And when you get to your last single crochet, you're going to join your last stitch to your first stitch with a slip stitch, as we have been doing in every previous row. So if you'd like to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, let me be back here at the end of the round, showing you how we're moving into round 12. All right, so we're at the end of round 11 and we're moving into round 12. To start round 12, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. And round 12 is another simple one. We're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. And then we'll join our last stitch to our first stitch with a slip stitch at the end of the round. And we should still have 41 stitches at the end of the round. So if you'd like to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, I'll meet you back here at the end of the round to show you how we're moving into round 13. All right, so we're at the end of round 12, moving into the round 13 next. So we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. To start round 13, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around until you have 2 stitches left to be worked. So you should be doing 39 single crochets, and there should be 2 stitches left to be worked at the end of the round. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 39 single crochets, or work around your piece in single crochet until there's 2 stitches left to be worked, let me meet you back here in just a moment to show you how we're going to finish off those last 2 stitches of the round. All right, so I'm back and we have 2 stitches left to be worked at the end here of round 13. You should have 39 single crochets already worked in this round. To finish off our round, we're going to do a single crochet decrease. So we've done a few of these already, so we'll do this quicker. Into the first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, into the next, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Then we're going to join our last stitch to the first stitch with a slip stitch join. And at this point, you should have 40 stitches around. So we're ready to move into round 14. So I'm going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn my work. And for round 14, we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. But when we get to the end of this round, we're not going to join. So work 1 single crochet into each stitch around and meet me back at the end of the round, and I'll show you what we're going to do differently at the end of this round, moving into round 15. So I'm back and I'm just about to do my last stitch of round 14. So at this point, I've done 39 single crochets. I have this last stitch left to be worked. And what we're going to be doing differently here is we're going to change colors moving into the next round, and we're not going to be joining our piece because we're now going to create a gap in the back that will create an opening to make it easier to put this costume onto our dolls. So to do our last stitch, we're going to insert a hook and yarn over, pulling up a loop like we normally would. Then we're going to grab our next color. Now this next color is going to be a small stripe across the costume to create what looks like a little bit of a belt for our toy. So to change colors, we're going to lay the new color over our hook, and then we're going to pull that new yarn through both loops on our hook to finish the stitch with the old color. I'm pulling down on the old color here to kind of help secure my yarn in place. And then I'm going to yarn over and chain up 1 to help secure that even further. And then I'm going to turn my work. Okay. So at this point, we're no longer joining. We're working in turned rounds. or turned rows, sorry. So now we're going to work 2 rows of single crochet, 1 in each stitch around, using this new color. There we go. I was getting a little loosey-goosey on me there. So we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. And again, at the end of the round, we're going to not be joining. So when we get to the end of the round, we're just going to chain up 1, turn our work, and do the next round in doing 1 single crochet in each stitch around. So again, if you'd like to pause your video and do round 15 and 16, working 1 single crochet into each stitch around, I'll meet you here at the end of round 16 when you're about to do your last stitch of round 16, because we'll be changing colors, and I'll show you how to do that moving into round 17. All right, so I'm back and I just finished rounds 15 and 16. I just have my last stitch here to work in round 16, which I'm going to show you what we're going to be doing now. But before we do that, just wanted to show you, this is what your piece should look like so far. We've got our shorts and our little belt. So moving into round 17, we need to change colors. So that means in the last stitch here, we need to start using our new color. So inserting into that last stitch of round 16, we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Then we're going to drop the old color and bring in our new color, which is going to be the top portion of our costume. And I've chosen the orange for that. So we're going to lay the yarn over our hook. And in fact, I'm going to put a little slip knot in here for myself because it will make it a little bit more secure for me while I'm working and talking at the same time. So I'm just going to put that slip knot here on the hook, and I'm going to pull that through both loops on our hook, and I'm ready to move forward. So moving forward with the new color, I'm going to chain up 1 and turn my work. If you haven't already cut your first color, you can do that and leave the ends to weave in later. And if you'd like, you can go ahead and cut a tail on your belt color, leaving a tail that's long enough for you to weave in, usually 4 to 6 inches, and then you can move on from here. So for rounds 17, 18, and 19, they're all worked the same way. We're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, and then we're going to, at the end of the round, we'll chain up 1, turn our work, and do the same thing. So if you'd like to pause your video and do rounds 17, 18, and 19, working 1 single crochet into each stitch around, I'll meet you back here at the end of round 19 to show you how we're moving into round 20. All right, so I'm back and I just finished round 17, 18, and 19, and we're moving into round 20. To start round 20, we're going to create our first buttonhole for the back of our costume. So to create our first buttonhole, we're going to need to create a chain of 6. So we're going to yarn over and pull through the loop. There's 1. Yarn over and pull through. There's 2. We're going to continue to do this till we have 6. So there's 2, 4, 5, and 6. Now that we have our chain 6, we're going to turn our work. And then we're going to skip the 6 chains and we're going to work 1 single crochet into that last stitch of the previous round. And now you can see by doing that, we've created a little loop, which will become a buttonhole later. Now for the rest of this round, we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. At the end of this round, you should still have 40 stitches and your chain 6 space here for a buttonhole. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, I'll meet you back here at the end of the round to show you how we're moving into round 21. All right, so I'm back and I just finished my last stitch of round 20. Now moving into round 21, rounds 21 and 22 are done the same way. We're going to yarn over and chain up 1, turn our work, and then we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So if you'd like to pause your video and do rounds 21 and 22, working 1 single crochet in each stitch around, I'll meet you back here at the end of round 22 to show you how we're moving into round 23. All right, so we're back and we just finished rounds 21 and 22 and we're moving into round 23. Now for round 23 is where we're going to start shaping the top of our doll's garment to be more fitted along the upper torso. So to start round 23, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the first 18 stitches. So working into that first stitch, we're going to single crochet, and we're going to do this 17 more times. So there's 2. All right, so we've done 18 single crochets, and now we're going to do a single crochet decrease. So it's been a while since we've done that, so we'll do another one together, inserting into the first stitch, pull up a loop, into the next, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining 20 stitches. At the end of this round, you should have 39 stitches. So we'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet in each remaining stitch. I'll meet you back here at the end to show you how we're moving into round 24. All right, so we are moving into round 24 now. So we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the first 8 stitches. There's 1. And 4. All right, so now that we have 8 stitches, we're going to do a single crochet decrease. So again, into that first, pull up a loop, into this next stitch, pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining 29 stitches. At the end of this round, you should have 38 stitches. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each remaining stitch, I'll meet you back here at the end of the round to show you how we're moving into round 25. So to start round 25, we're going to work 1 single crochet into the first 8 stitches. Sorry about that. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so now we have our 8 stitches. Now we're going to do a single crochet decrease again. So now that we have our decrease done, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining 28 stitches. At the end of this round, you should have 37 stitches. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining stitches, I'll meet you back here at the end of the round to show you how we're moving into the real round 26. All right, so we're moving into round 26. We're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. And then for round 26, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the first 12 stitches. There's our first. And we're going to just do this until we have 12 single crochets. So now that we have our 12 single crochets, we're going to do a single crochet decrease. And now that we have our decrease done, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining 23 stitches. At the end of this round, you should have 36 single crochets. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each remaining stitch, I'll meet you back here at the end of the round to show you how we're going to move into round 27. All right, so we're moving into round 27. We're going to start with a chain 1 and turn of our work. So to do round 27, we have a pattern repeat that we need to do 6 times for this round because we're going to be doing a significant amount of shaping in this round. So we're going to start by working 1 single crochet into each of the first 4 stitches. So here's our first single crochet. There's 2, 3, and 4. So there's our first 4 single crochets, and now we're going to do a single crochet decrease into the next stitch, or over the next 2 stitches, I should say. All right, so that is our first pattern repeat. So our pattern repeat is 4 single crochets followed by a single crochet decrease. Now we've done 1 repeat already, and now we have to do it 5 more times. So I'll show you how to do that again. We're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the first 4 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to finish this pattern repeat with a single crochet decrease. Right, and that's our second pattern repeat. So we're going to do this 4 more times, and at the end of the round we should have 30 stitches. So if you'd like to continue doing that pattern repeat of 4 single crochets followed by a single crochet decrease until the end of the round, we meet you back here at the end of the round to show you how we're moving into the next round of our piece. And so we're moving into round 28 now. We have 30 single crochets. And to start round 28, we're going to start with a chain 6. So we're going to be creating our next buttonhole loop. So we're going to yarn over and pull through the loop on our hook. That's 1. And we're going to continue to do this yarn over and pull through the loop until we have 6 chains. So we have our 6 chains, then we're going to turn our work, and then we're going to skip the 6 chains, and we're going to work 1 single crochet into that first stitch. And then we have our second buttonhole loop. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next stitch. Oops. And then we're going to do a single crochet decrease. Then we're going to create our first armhole for the strap of our sleeve. That, I guess not really a sleeve, it's like a tank top strap. So our first strap. So we're going to chain up 8. So we're going to yarn over and pull through the loop. And we're going to do this 8 times. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So then we're going to skip the next 7 stitches in our piece. So count, this is where we're going to be counting from. This is our last stitch. We're going to start counting in the first available stitch here, and we're going to count over 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then I'm going to put my finger right here next to that 8th stitch because I know that's where I'm going to be working my next stitch into. So now that I've skipped 7 stitches, the instructions say we're going to be doing a single crochet decrease. So I'm going to work into that first stitch here, which is our 8th stitch from where we last worked, and then we're going to start our single crochet decrease. Okay, and at this point you should have a little armhole for your doll to put their arm through. Now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. Now we're going to do a single crochet decrease. And now we're ready to create our second armhole. So we're going to do that by creating another chain 8. So we yarn over and pull through the loop. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now that we have our chain 8, again, we're going to have to skip 7 stitches in our piece. And because the last leg of our decrease is worked into that stitch here, we're going to start counting in the next available stitch in our piece. So we're going to count over 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And again, placing my finger next to that 8th stitch because I know that's where I'm going to work next. So now that we've done our skipped 7 stitches, we're going to do a single crochet decrease. And And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. Now at the end of this round, you should have 12 single crochet stitches and your chain 6 buttonhole here at the end and your 2 chain 8 space armholes. Okay, so now we're ready to move into round 29. To start round 29, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. So in this round, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch and chain across, but we're not going to work into that chain 6 space at the end. We never work into those little button loops. So we're going to start by working 1 single crochet into each of these first 3 stitches. Now, when we get to the chain space, we actually want to work into the chains, ideally not around them. So when we are working into the chains, I find it easier to turn the chains so they are facing you, and so you can see the little V's. And now we're going to, this first chain often is very tricky to see, so I'm just going to kind of push into that with my hook and place my first single crochet. And we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each of these chains across. Now at the end of this round, you should have 28 stitches. And because these chains can be tricky for some folks, I do recommend taking a moment at the end of the round to check your stitch count. So we're working across our first armhole here. And so we're now ready to start working into our stitches, and then again we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each of these stitches across to the next armhole. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each remaining stitch and chain across, I'm going to at the end of the round to show you what our next steps will be. All right, so I just did my last stitch of round 29 and we're ready to finish off our piece. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cut a yarn tail of about 4 to 6 inches, cut my yarn, and then I like to yarn over and chain up 1 and pull that yarn all the way through because it just is a little bit more secure doing that chain 1. So I'm going to pull that tight. And then you can weave in your ends. Now, when you're done weaving in your ends, I like to take my piece and lay it flat on a flat surface. And then you can see easily where your chain 6 spaces are. Now, you want to make sure that the right side is facing you when you're doing this. Now, I'm going to show you the difference between the right side and the wrong side. So right now I have the right side facing me, and this is what the front of your piece should look like. It should look like there's little tiny V's along where the color changes happen here and here. Now, if you're looking at the wrong side of your piece, one second, turning it inside out. You can see both legs of your single crochet. You can see this here and this here and this here and this here. And so it's not as clean. So if this is what your piece looks like while you're looking at it, you've got the wrong side facing out, and you're going to want to turn your piece so the right side is facing you. So with the right side facing you, you're going to lay your project flat on a surface. And then you're going to find the place on the back of your superhero costume where your buttonhole meets the back of the other side of the costume here. And then you'll use your sewing needle and thread to sew one of your little buttons here, your little 9mm buttons, to sew a button into those locations. And so that way, once you're done weaving in your ends and you've got your buttons on your little doll's garment, you can slip your chain space over those buttons to act as buttonholes. Now, if you'd like, you can end your costume here, and that's totally fine. But I actually created a little emblem that we're going to crochet for this next. So it is an optional piece if you'd like, but we're going to go ahead and crochet that emblem next. All right, so we're going to create our little emblem that goes on the front of our superhero costume. And the reason I created that is most superhero costumes have some sort of emblem on the front. And I left this blank. So we're going to create the base of the emblem, and then you can really customize it however you'd like. You can embroider your child's initials on it. You can sew a fun and funky button on it. Whatever you think would be fun kind of symbol for your superhero, right? And because that's up to your child's preference, if they really like, I don't know, say the Flash, maybe you can print a little logo on, what is it called? Like a transfer paper. Obviously, you have to avoid heat if you're using acrylic, but you could kind of transfer a logo onto that as well. So there's a lot of different options that you could pursue to customize this for your child. Now, when we're doing the logo, I opted to use the same color that I use for the base or the pants of my costume, which for me is the light teal color. So we're going to start our emblem, and we're going to start by creating a slip knot and placing it onto our crochet hook. And we're going to start by creating a chain of 6. So we're going to yarn over and pull through the loop until we have 6 chains. All right, so now that we have our 6 chains, we're going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each remaining chain across. At the end of the row, you should have 5 single crochets. So now that we have our 5 single crochets, we're going to chain up 1 and turn our work. And now we're going to work a single crochet decrease. So working into that first stitch, pull up a loop, into the next, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next stitch. And then we're going to do a single crochet decrease into the last. And now you should have 3 single crochets. So now we're going to work into row 3. We're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. And we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of those stitches. We should have 3 stitches at the end of this round. Now we're going to chain up 1 and turn our work. We're going to do a special stitch called a single crochet 3 together. So we're going to insert into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You're going to insert into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. There should be 3 loops on your hook now. You insert into the last stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 4 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and chain up 1. You've only got 1 stitch in this row. We're going to turn our work, and we're going to single crochet once into that last stitch. So now we're going to create our border. So we're going to chain up 1, and we're going to turn our piece so that we're going to be working down the long side into the edge of the piece. So the right side is facing us at this point, and we're going to place 1 single crochet into each of the edges of our rows. So you're going to work 4 single crochets. So there's 2, 3, and 4. So now we're at the corner of our piece, and we're going to work 3 single crochets into that corner. So we're working into the backs of the chains from our foundation row here, and we're going to work 3 single crochets. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So again, we're working into the backs of the back loops of the chain from our foundation chain here. And now we're at our next corner. So that means we're going to work another 3 single crochets into that stitch, because those 3 single crochets help us to turn our corner. All right, so we've done our 3 single crochets here in the corner, and now those 3 single crochets have helped us turn our piece. So now we can work down the opposite long side of our piece. Now, working down this side of the piece, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each edge of the round or the rows. So we should be working 4 single crochets down this side of the piece. So there's 2, 3, and 4. So now we're back at the tip of our piece, and we're going to work 3 single crochets into this last corner here. Oops. So there's 1, 2, and 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish off our piece now, and we're going to use a technique called the invisible join. And so you're going to cut your piece, leaving a longer tail this time, because you need enough yarn tail to do the invisible join as well as sew this piece to your costume if you're using it. So we're going to cut our tail. I like to leave about 10 to 15 inches just to be on the safe side. And then now that I've cut my yarn tail, I'm going to use my crochet hook to pull the yarn all the way through that last stitch. And I'm going to grab my tapestry needle here and thread my yarn tail onto my tapestry needle. So now we're going to do the invisible join, and what it does is it uses your yarn tail to replicate the next stitch in your round here, so that way it kind of evens out that step between your last stitch and the next stitch here. So I'm going to take my tapestry needle and I'm going to skip the next stitch, and I'm going to insert my hook under my tapestry needle under both loops of the next stitch here. Okay, so we're skipping a stitch and inserting our needle under both loops of the next stitch. And then we're going to pull that yarn all the way through. Okay, so we're not going to want to pull that too tight, because as you can see, if I pull that tight, it's going to cinch it together, and we want it to lay nice and flat. So we just want it to be nice and relaxed. So then we're going to take our yarn tail and we're going to insert it through the top of the last stitch that we did, and we're going to insert it through the top and out under the back loop only. So when you look at your stitch, you've got 2 loops. You've got your front loop and your back loop, and so we're going in through the top, under the back loop, and out through the back of our piece. Okay, so I'm going to pull that yarn all the way through. Now you can see that my yarn tail is kind of crossed. I don't want that. I'm going to make sure my yarn is out of there so I don't create a knot by accident. So I'm going to pull that yarn and hold some tension in there, and I just want to have that yarn look like the skipped stitch. Right? So we don't want to pull that too tight because it will damage our piece. Just want it to be nice and relaxed. And there you go. That is your emblem. And as I said before, you can customize this a lot of ways. You could make a little felt lightning bolt and glue that on. You can, like I said, embroider your child's initials, embroider AA for Advent Adam, or just A for Advent Adam. Whatever you'd like to do to customize that. I left it blank because I like giving you the option to customize it and make it personal for you and your child, or whomever you may be giving this to. So now that you've got your piece done, again, we're going to lay your superhero costume flat on a flat surface with the right side facing you and the front of it facing you. Okay, so this is what it should look like laying on that surface. And then we're just going to find a spot on the front where we'd like it to go. So I like to line the top row here kind of up with the, let's call it the armpits of the costume. Then if you have some little sewing pins, you can pin it in place. If not, I'm just going to hold mine in place with my finger here, and then I'm going to just start sewing it on using my yarn tail. Now, you have some options when you're sewing this onto your piece, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. When you're sewing it on, you can either go through both loops of each stitch, which is easier, but it's not as clean because you can tell that your piece is actually hand sewn on. If you would like it to be cleaner and you'd like to have these V's showing, then what you're going to do is you're going to take a look at the back of your stitches, and this is the wrong side of my piece, and you can see that there's these little loops on the back of your single crochet, these little horizontal loops. What you're going to do is you're going to insert your needle through those loops, and you're attaching the back of the emblem to the front of your piece. And when you do that, it creates this nice clean edge with your V's showing on the front and top of your work. And it almost kind of looks like it's glued on instead of sewn on because you cannot see your stitches. So what you'll do is you'll just kind of sew this all the way around. You'll want to weave this end in as well from the beginning. And you're just going to work all the way around your piece to sew it on. Now, another thing is that you don't have to sew this on the same direction I did. If you'd prefer to have the wide side of the triangle at the bottom and the point facing up, that's totally up to you. You don't feel beholden to how I have done it. Again, part of crochet is just the ability to be creative and customize things to your own personal preferences. So feel free to kind of just play with it a little bit and see what you like best. All right, so I've finished sewing on my little emblem here, and then all that's left to do is to put my yarn tail into the back of my piece here and weave in my ends. And that's it. That's how you make your superhero costume for your Amigurumi doll. I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to this channel. If you like free crochet patterns, please check out my blog, theloopylamb.com, where we have over 100 free crochet patterns, many of which have step-by-step video tutorials just like this one. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.